Hello friends, I am Tanmay Dev, your instructor. Welcome to the channel Sanchoita. I hope you all preparing yourself for SSC skill test very carefully and sincerely. Today I am going to dictate a passage from the editorial of the Hindu. This passage is about media, the fourth pillar of democracy, and the effects of social media in journalism. Heading of the passage: Approaching the misinformation storm. Total words 880. Speed will be 80 words per minute. As you know, after the dictation, you will get the important words with outline and full passage. Now be ready. I will start my dictation after the countdown of 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. Echo chambers have been a defining character of smaller towns for a number of years. When I first went to US for postgraduate study, I chose a small town in New York State. The university was considered one of the best business schools in the world. The fact the long since diminished Bose and Lomb, Eastman Kodak and Xerox were headquartered in the town meant the university was well funded. It attracted star faculty despite the town's small size and reputation for long, cold winters. When I arrived there, however, I was horrified by the paucity of news. The local Democrat and Chronicle within bracket derisively called the within single quote demagogue and comical decode bracket close only covered news from the local county. There was no US news to speak of, let alone global news. Having grown up on a diet of broadly focused Indian newspapers, this was anathema to me. My indulgent father gifted me a subscription to the international edition of the Hindu, which was printed weekly and took at least a further week to arrive by post. It was only 6 pages in a small pamphlet format that could be folded and stuffed into a regular envelope to save on postage costs. Nonetheless, it gave me a much needed view of international, Indian and even US news. In the 1980s, the penultimate decade of US newspaper ascendancy, hundreds of news organizations existed to serve these sorts of towns, much like they still do in multilingual India today. The internet put paid to all that. One would have thought the democratic access to a large variety of news from all corners of the globe would have opened up to echo chambers in towns and rural areas. But the hard fact is that the internet was pulled the other way. There are far fewer news outlets now than there some years ago. The travesty is that many of these organizations are not news outlets. They are social networks such as Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter. These have no journalistic norms. Anyone can say anything at any time about any topic with scant respect for the truth. Everything is an opinion but not clearly labeled as such. As a result, much of the within single quote news decode available on these platforms is biased. The unscrupulous sale of personal information and meddling by inimical foreign regimes can potentially even influence the outcome of an election. Worse, the spread of false and malicious news can stoke violence at short notice. We have already seen this in India when WhatsApp came under Indian regulatory scrutiny after a doctored video that originated as an innocent advertisement in Pakistan spread on that medium and stoked violence. The ascendance of Geo and the responses from its competition means that anywhere between 500 million to 700 million people are newly online, almost all from towns and rural areas. The US experience with the internet should serve as a stark warning to India. Most Americans now get their news from dubious internet sources. The hardening of political stances on both sides of the divide is plain to see, and the acute polarization of the average American's viewpoint is painful to watch. For India, the danger is that, like the US, such extreme polarization can happen in a few short years. Also, the echo chamber has been greatly enhanced by the highly targeted algorithms that these companies use. The algorithms were built around making users stay online longer and click through the advertisements. They are likely to bombard users with information that serves to reinforce what the algorithm thinks the searcher needs to know. For instance, if I search for a particular type of phone on an e-commerce site even once, future searches are likely to autocomplete that search by showing that phone when I next open the app. It is the same with news. If I show a preference for right-wing leaning posts, for instance, the algorithms are likely to provide me with ever more right-wing posts from people and organizations. As they familiarize themselves with the internet, newly online Indians are bound to fall prey to the echo chamber algorithms that social network firms use, as well as other algorithms that ensure that they spend inordinate amounts of time within the bubble of one social network, therefore becoming easy marks for targeted advertising both for products and of political viewpoints. Much can be said about how we should approach the impending internet misinformation storm. I shall attempt to make a beginning here. First, we know that tech firms are already under fire from all quarters, just as they are struggling to meet calls to contain the online spread of misinformation and hate speech online. They are being accused of suppressing both left-wing and right-wing views. There is no pleasing anyone on this issue. Nonetheless, we need to act. Second, unlike the US, which has now become unlikely to directly regulate such firms, India might need to chart its own path by keeping them under check before they proliferate. In the US, these uses were not sufficiently legislated for and have existed for over a decade. Existing legislation has been tested by the American court system, which has held that companies like Google and Facebook clearly engage in both free speech and press activities when they display content created by third parties. Stop writing. Now try to read your steno script and then do transcription. Now I am showing you important words with outlines. This is part 1. This is part 2. It is advised that if you also note down the word's meaning, it will improve your English also. Now I am showing you the passage. This is part 1. This is part 2. This is part 3. And this is the final part. Thanks very much for watching. I hope my videos are helpful to you.